Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the next instalment of the Quantum Leap 24-hour business show going around the world on a continuous basis with interesting people from all walks of life. And it's my pleasure in this segment of the show to welcome Scott Fitzpatrick. Good morning, Scott.
Thanks, John. Great to be here.
Scott, for those that don't know, obviously in Australia, you'll be a bit better known than perhaps in other parts of the world, but hockey was where it all started for you. Can you just share a little bit about that?
Well, I grew up in a country town, and, you know, in country towns, you might play three sports on the weekend, soccer, hockey and footy, but hockey was the most organised. So in a little country town called Murwillumbah, we got into hockey, and now, 40 years later, my kids are all playing and I'm playing. I still play. I've got a bit of a sore back from playing, but it's one of those great games you can play forever.
Yeah, I've had a good mate on the Gold Coast, a guy called Billy Freeman, and he's still playing at veterans level around the world, and he must be 61 or 2. So
yeah, there you go.
By Murwillumbah, I'm assuming when you said footy, you mean rugby league.
Rugby league, yep. There's no rugby union or AFL back in those days.
So I've just interviewed John Dutton, who's the CEO of the next Rugby League World Cup here in the UK later this year. So that was an interesting interview. So Scott, you know, sport, which is pretty much a staple diet for just about every Aussie kid, but not all of them get to the level that you got to. Just share without sort of blowing up things, but just share where you got to with the Olympics and all that sort of stuff.
Well, it's a journey, you know. It's hockey for me. I had to make a choice between hockey and swimming or surf life saving when I was about 16, and I much preferred the team sport to individual sports. And so, you know, hockey then, you know, led me into playing for New South Wales, playing for Australia, travelling around the world with the sport. And, you know, many of those friendships still exist today from those people all around the world that I've met. And, you know, you've got to enjoy the trials and tribulations of high performance sport. It's not a straight line, let me tell you. But I learned a lot of good lessons out of that. And now I'm really fortunate my kids are playing. I've got a couple of kids that are in the Australian side at the moment. Who knows where that's going to end up. They will pick the team in about a month. We've just been in Darwin watching them play, where they were trying to acclimatise for Tokyo. Tokyo will be 35 to 40 degrees. So imagine playing sport in the middle of the day in that heat. So it's really lovely to watch the kids coming through playing the game. They didn't have a choice, of course. We don't let any soccer players or netballers into our house. It's all about hockey.
But it must be some gene pool, because your wife was fairly high up in the sport as well, and to have all four kids, you know, reach a state level.
Yeah, all four kids play state or national level. We've got a hockey field under the house. We're a little bit fanatical about it. So we built a purpose-built synthetic field under the house for training. It does become the odd cricket hall or soccer match as well, but mainly hockey. And it is great. It is great to watch your kids. And, you know, it's all about them. They're not doing it for mum and dad. They're doing it because they love playing. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to go and watch them play around the world. Although the last 12 months, we haven't seen much of that. But we've travelled a lot through Europe and Asia and, you know, Chile, Argentina, watching them play in different events. So it's a nice piece of the puzzle.
So what are your thoughts on Japan at the moment, Scott? Is there any, with all the COVID stuff, that must be putting in some fairly decent restrictions? So what impact does that have practically on the girls getting over there?
Yeah, as I said, the issue was this. It's either a positive or a negative. I haven't quite worked it out yet, but in Australia here, we haven't been able to play any international games at all. There will be a series coming up against New Zealand, who are a top 6 side as well. But that'll be the first games we've played in, you know, a year and a half. The European sides have still been playing each other. So the positive is probably no one has seen us play. They would have, you know, they're looking at old footage from almost 2 years ago now.
Yep.
The negative is obviously you haven't been able to test yourself internationally, and they're all getting a bit sick of playing against each other.
Yep.
In squads. In Tokyo, I think, you know, we were prepared to go a year ago. Obviously, there will be no tourists there, no spectators. The girls look like they'll have their vaccinations. They'll walk in, play their games, and then they're on a plane back out again.
Yep. So it'd be quite different compared to the couple of the games that that you went to. Scott, what was the highlights of the games of the Olympics that you went to, do you think?
Yeah, just to be clear, I didn't get to go to the Olympics. No, a fellow called Rick Charlesworth kept me out, who was probably the world's best player at the time.
Yep.
I was, I should have done a Tonya Harding on him. I should have brought the baseball bat out and cracked him across the knee. Yeah, he kept me out. I signed my forms to say I was going, but I didn't get a plane ticket, unfortunately.
So that must have been fairly disappointing.
It was, and that sort of leads me on to, what did I learn out of sport? And I think, resilience is a big thing I talk to my kids about, that the high performance pathway is a roller coaster. Resilience, determination, you get kicked, you get knocked down, and you've got a choice again about whether you get back up again and keep going. And I know you've got a lot of viewers who are small business owners, and they have that choice every day, because it's not a straight line to success. So,
absolutely, and there's always obstacles that are thrown in your way that you can't possibly even see. Some you can forecast, but not others.
Left field.
Yep.
It's a roller coaster ride of emotion, playing sport and being in business.
Yep. I had Barry Cusack, who was the top dog in Rio Tinto, on the show, and the other day, and he was saying that people shouldn't be surprised when things go down. They should have at least thought through the process. What are the pros and cons? And it's all right to fail, but it's not all right to fail but wonder why.
Yeah, or to keep failing through the same mistake. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that why the Wikipedia page? Your daughter has got the superior Wikipedia page.
Don't worry about it. My kids tell me quite often that they've surpassed their father. There
must be a proud moment for you, Scott.
Yeah, it is. It really is. They've got a very healthy passport. The number of countries they've visited and played in Com Games and World Cups, and to play at the Olympics, hopefully. Look, the Olympics for them is not the end all or be all. They've got their career will last another 4, 5, 8, 10 years, depending on, as long as they keep enjoying it. I keep saying, you're not playing for me, you're playing for yourself, and you've got to enjoy it. But you've got to enjoy the hard work.
Yep.
And it's 4 to 5 hours a day for those kids, and they get paid about $300 a week.
Wasn't it Gary Player said that the harder he worked, the luckier he got?
That's it. There's a lot to be said for that.
Scott, I talk a lot about connections and collaborations, and in fact, we were introduced through an old friend, and when I say old, a long-standing friend and also business partner that's going to be on the show too, David Johnston. You're in a business now where you're dealing with business people and looking after their financial situations. What sort of connections and collaborations and stuff do you work on in that regard, Scott, that a small business could take from on how to sort of grow, prospects?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things there. I'm always on the lookout. So if our starting point is for a business owner as a client is, how do we get them from point A to point B? And who do I need to surround them with to give them the best chance of success? Highest degree of probability, best chance of success to succeed in the business. And so I'm always on the lookout on how I can connect people with the right people. So in our business, we talk about having a best of breed team. I need to have a best of breed team around me, whether it's in accountants, lawyers, business coaches, bankers, financiers, advisory board style people that I can introduce my business clients to set them on the right path. That's how I met your good friend David Johnson, was through another fellow, an auditor, who connected us together. And after that, Dave actually became a client, which is really lovely. But we've been able to refer each other a lot of work over that period of time.
It's something that a lot of people miss, and there's various. Do you do any networking or go to any organised networking events now, or is it more just through your own contacts and other services like LinkedIn, perhaps?
Yeah, so I like to break up my business week into the work that I've got to do today to bring the dollars in, dollars out. But also I like to spend 1 to 2 days a week in creating the future revenue for the business, the future revenue streams. And that is who are the people I need to meet? What are the phone calls I need to make to move my business forward? So I've got one eye on today and one eye on the future. And I think what a lot of business people is, they spend 100% of their time on today. And I think what that does is cause a lot of stress because they can have a good day or a bad day, and they're not thinking about their future pipeline. And so to answer your question, yeah, I do a lot of, if you want to call it networking, but I want to make sure I'm doing that smart and I'm dealing with the right people who are mixing with the right type of client that I want to meet.
Yep. No, that makes complete sense. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can relate to this feast and famine part of business. I see it with tradespeople all the time. They're that busy, they don't answer their phone for a month, and then they haven't got any work for the next 2 weeks. So
that's it. They're completely stuck in today's revenue, not thinking about future revenue, future services, about how they can grow their business. And then sometimes that's why you need an advisor or an advisory board earlier in your business to help you think about your business as a business person, not someone who's just good on the tools.
Yep. Yeah, no, wise words. Scott, I think I'm going to write a book one day, and one of the ones I had in mind was the 1.8 degrees of separation, which is the old 6 degrees of separation is 2.0. How does social media and better, faster connected world help or hinder you?
Yeah, that's a really good, interesting one. I think it does help, but I'm in a personal relationship orientated business. So I'm happy to use social media to connect with possible prospects or people who can help me advance my business. But at the end of the day, I need to be able to eyeball somebody. I need to be able to shake hands with them. In our business, we look after a lot of clients' affairs. We look after their money. We look after their total balance sheet. And it's a high trust equation is what we're involved in. So I like social media for the initial contact, but where possible, I want to be able to sit there and eyeball that person and build a relationship with them.
Yep.
So it's the yin and the yang of it for me. I struggled over the last year just because we couldn't meet with people.
Yep.
We had to obviously become experts on Zoom.
Yep.
Which was great. Happy to do that. But for me, small business relationship orientated. So it's very important to be able to sit there opposite people. And plus also you gather so much more information when you're in the room with that person.
Yep. Now I get it. You can look at their surroundings, what their office or what their house looks like, or what some of the other things, and you pick up little tidbits of information that help you in your guidance.
Absolutely. Energetically, you pick up, all these different things. You pick up all the small intonations. You pick up the relationships between the husband and wife or spouse and spouse, whatever it is.
Yep.
You get a lot, better feel for what's going on in that situation.
And there's a lot of people out there like yourself, Scott, that are they're in a service type business and they're used to meeting people and they haven't been able to. So what's a couple of quick tips of what you did last year to overcome some of the issues caused by having to do the business over Zoom and other platforms?
Yeah, what I'm really big on is having an ideal week. And an ideal week, I set that out into, who are the people I need to contact and when do I need to do it? And typically it's on a Sunday night is my tip. Normally it might be a glass of beer or a glass of red in front of me, but I work out what my week looks like, and I have a to-do list and I have a not to-do list.
Okay.
What are all the time wasters I'm going to spend this week? What aren't I going to do? And there's a whole bunch of people I need to contact, whether it's through phone or Zoom or email, and I want to make sure I've got that scheduled into my week. And then there's a whole bunch of people, if I look at this as in terms of spheres of influence, there are clients, and quite often my best clients come from my best clients' peer groups. So how do I create events where my clients and peers will be there that I'll get to meet. And then I have my centres of influence, which are typically in my world are accountants, lawyers, bankers, etc. Who do I need to catch up with to keep myself front of mind with them? And it all starts with having that ideal week, because if you don't put that into your ideal week, you end up just doing the today stuff every day. You end up doing the urgent stuff.
Yep. Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. Scott, your sporting prowess must have helped you in business, and you've had your business going since 1987, so the proof of the pudding's in the eating. Do you think anything's changed over the years? If you were starting a business again today, what would be different? Would you do anything differently?
That's another ripper of a question. I really think my sporting background helped me a lot. That's that resilience piece, because it is hard being in small business. It's hard putting on a brave face when you go home to the wife and kids and you've had a bad day. And for the business owner, you always carry risk. And I think one of the smartest things I did early was I brought on a business coach. And could I afford it at the time? No, but I could not afford to do it. In my mind, and it was an example I used years ago that, Tiger Woods, best golfer in the world, had a coach. And I went, here am I thinking I'm the best businessman in the world? I'm not. I need a coach. And sometimes that coach is a coach. Sometimes they're a mentor. Sometimes they're an advisor to you. And I think if you can get the right coach early on, it's a fantastic investment in your business. And I think that's the one thing I did really well. The second thing I did really well as the business grew, I surrounded myself with smarter people than me. And I was happy to let go. So I think that's the other important message for people is, what do you need to let go of to get what you really want? Because quite often the small business owners want to hold it all in. And you get to keep being a very small business owner if you do that.
I did a complete session on that recently, and on the premise that people are great and passionate about what they do, but they're generally hopeless and don't like a lot of the other stuff in their business, and yet they spend too much time doing the stuff that they're not good at, and they don't like it.
Outsource.
Yeah, brilliant.
With good people who will do that a whole lot better than you.
Absolutely. And in fact, I had Dr. Phil Jauncey. I don't know if you've ever run into Phil. He's pretty well known in sporting circles globally. Yep. And I had him on the show also for this session coming up. And he was talking along the lines of those things, but he was also moving over into the mental side of things. And, if you've got, imagination and if you've envisagement, he calls it. So it's Tiger Woods looking over a putt, and that's all Phil Jauncey from the work that he started 30, 40 years ago did. So it all makes sense along those lines.
Well, I call it thinking time. You've got to allow yourself thinking time in your business. Quite often you're a small business owner, you start at 7 and you finish at 7, but you've got no thinking time.
Yeah.
It's having 2 glasses of water that are both full. You need to empty one out.
Yeah.
And to be able to create some room for yourself in your mind.
Yeah, brilliant thought, Scott. So I like talking to business people, and it's my passion, has been for a long time. And one of the lovely things, they usually have a pivotal moment in their business, that just something clicked or something happened, or they met somebody that changed their life and business forever. Did you run across anything like that?
Yeah, it's almost, I love that. It's almost like this pinball machine I talk to people about. You're playing a pinball and all of a sudden you've met someone and they've sent you off in that direction. And I've had 2 of those in my life, and wherever possible, I try to pay that forward as well. So for me, once I met a lawyer called Peter Bobbin. In Australia, we call him Dr. Death. And 20 years ago, he told me to get into estate planning, and he told me to start charging fees for service. So 20 years ago, there was no such thing in Australia as fee for service. Most people sold a product and took a commission. So I started charging fees 20 years ago, and I got into this whole area of estates, and that really propelled our business forward. It was a great thing. And then the second one was a fellow called Dennis Preston, who said, Scott, you're an old teacher. You need to start teaching people how to do this. And the light bulb came on for me. And I set up a coaching business or training business to teach other advisors about what we do. And that really propelled our business to what it is today. We've got about 30 offices and 100 advisors around the country. And I still spend most of my time now teaching advisors. So 2 pivotal moments for me.
Yep. And the only way to scale your business, really. You can't replicate yourself a million times.
Yeah, the other one, I've read the E-Myth about 25 years ago, and that's resonated with me too, that book.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Scott, your business focus is all about helping business owners develop a life plan and become better organised financially. Can you share a few top tips and explain some of the simple mistakes that that you observe people making that are great dentists or they're great widget makers or whatever, but they cock up some of the simple stuff? Any examples?
Yeah, plenty. I think, the start point is we've all got about 168 hours in the week, and it's where do you want to spend your time? And I think if you're going to work and you're a small business owner, you're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of headspace at work. In Australia, there's a lot of complexity around our taxation, around our structures. But that start point is where you're trying to get to. And an advisor's role, in my mind, is to understand where you're trying to get to, where you are now, where you're trying to get to, and how do you get there with the least amount of risk, highest degree of probability. And I think for a lot of the people we see, they try to do it all themselves. They run out of time, and it becomes just too complex for them. And so they end up going into investments possibly they shouldn't be in. They've got the wrong structures. They haven't got a succession plan for their business. And it's all decisions made on the run. And this is where I think this concept of a family board comes in, who acts as your risk manager. And, with risk, you either avoid them, you transfer them, you reduce them, or you keep them. And so that's the role we like to play for our clients is, think of another way to think of it is, all those envelopes that sit on your kitchen table at night that you never get to, we take them away. Right?
Yep.
But the stuff is, what's going to make a great life for you, Mr. Client? That's what we should be heading towards.
Yep.
And helping people get really clear about what makes a great life. What does it look like?
Yep.
And I think a lot of husband, wives, partners, whatever, have not sat down together and thought through what are we doing in the next 1 year, 3 years, 10 years? What does make a great life? Because that's a very individual, personal conversation. Most people haven't taken the time to think about that.
Yep.
They're too busy in the running today.
Good tips. I had Jeff Fennick on my last show, Scott, and he was training Mike Tyson, and he shared a little story with me, and that Mike had said that everyone's got a plan until they get a smack in the face. I suppose a smack in the face from Mike Tyson's a bigger smack than most. How
Yes.
do you prepare someone for that smack, like COVID?
Yeah, that's COVID was a big punch in the face, and I think I look at everything. I tell my kids daily, everything in life is risk management. Right, every time you make a decision to drive down the road, how fast you go, if you go to the pub and have too many beers, like everything in life is risk management. So I like to look at a business and go, what is the perfect storm that can hit you? Tell me about all these risks that you think you're going to face, and then I'm going to add a few more to it as well. And we can only plan the best we can plan around those risks. That's all we can do. But it's a really important one to have a different set of eyes look at the risk that you face.
Yep.
And then, that's that conversation around avoid, transfer, reduce it, or keep the risk. So our business held up really, really well through COVID. And then what we went into, we had risk management plans for all our business owners. And that was really around contingency. It was around supply chains. It was around finances. It was around liquidity. Liquidity is a big one that most people forget about. What are your readily realisable assets in a perfect storm that can hit you?
Yep. Excellent. So a SWOT analysis on steroids.
On steroids, it's just what's the perfect storm? Is it you lose all your customers, you break both your legs, the wife leaves you? I don't know. What is that perfect storm that can hit you?
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Brilliant.
And that's what we do. be front of mind about.
Scott, you're just losing the light there, I noticed, which is okay. It's a natural thing. Just before there, can you just give a little tilt up to see the view out that window?
Yes, we are sitting on the beach here at Coolangatta. There are a few surfboards in the back office.
Wow. There'd be, I just did that for my UK friends and US friends that for a bit of plug for the Gold Coast and Tweed Tourism Bureau. So
Good plug.
I'll get my little backhander out for that. Scott, you talk about the 4 Ls. Can you share some light on that for us?
Yeah, that's a Stephen Covey concept, and I read the book, the 7 Habits of Successful People, probably 20, 25 years ago, and it's something it's part of the culture of our business now, that when we're talking to people about what are the building blocks for a great life. And, the 4 Ls for me are, how do you want to live your life? So, Mr. Business Owner, think about this. How do you want to live your life in 1 year, 3, 5, 10 years time? What does it look like? The second L is the love in your life. So explain to me all the relationships. How are they going? How's the relationships with siblings, parents, kids, and what are they going to look like over this next period of time? The third one is the learn. The learn is around, well, if you had a blank sheet of paper, looking back or forward, is there anything you'd want to do differently? Do you want to get into charity? Do you want to go back and do an MBA? Is there something musically you want to create for yourself? And the last one is your legacy piece. And legacy is two ways for me. Legacy is, if you weren't here today, what did you want your legacy to be? Or, whilst you're here, what would you like to pass on? And it helps people articulate what would make a great life for them.
Yep.
So it's just a tool we use, but we use it ourselves personally just to check in on how's our life going.
Yep.
Around 4 Ls.
Interesting. So Scott, as a finance guru and a business planning guru, there's been a lot of stuff, particularly in the last 5 to 10 years with cryptocurrency, digital trade currency, which I've been involved with for 30 odd years. Maybe I was before my time, but there's a move away from some of the traditional fiat currencies. What are your thoughts there, one way or another?
Yeah, once again, it's two ways for me. We look after many billions of dollars. I have an investment team of 35 people that run clients' wealth. We currently won't go near the cryptocurrencies. Regulation's not tight enough for us. We want complete transparency on any investment. We want to be able to do a deep dive on investment. So it's something that we avoid when we're looking after clients' portfolios or their money. Quite happy for them to have a bit of a tinkle with it on the side. But, in terms of setting people up for the retirement or the highest degree of certainty around their wealth, we're happy to be cautiously optimistic about it. That's how I would look at it.
Be interesting, and I know the guys like yourself in traditional fields have very similar views that I've spoken to. I'd love to fast forward 10 or 20 years and see what's happening.
Absolutely, it's not going away. But I don't want to be the early first adopter of it.
Yep.
Especially with a sizable portion of clients' wealth.
I guess the trick is, if you don't want to be the early adopter, you don't want to be the laggard either.
No, you don't. But for us, it just needs to pass a few more hurdles before we'd call it investment grade.
Yep.
That doesn't mean we're not interested in it. We're not researching it. We're not keeping an eye on it. But from a probity point of view, it doesn't work for us at the moment.
Yep.
Personally, sure, happy to have a dabble in it. Quite interested in it.
Yep.
But I don't want to bet the house on it.
That's it. So Scott, you've got as you said, loads of advisors around, and you've got offices all over the country, and what have you. How do you recruit and surround yourself with great people? And do you have any strategies there? Because one of the struggles that business people have, they start off as a one-person business, and then the first thing they run across when they get up to 50, 100 grand of turnover, a little bit more, they start recruiting people, and then everything goes to poo. So what do you have any one top strategy on what you look for in a recruit?
There's probably two or three things there. One, what I'm passionate about is what's the culture of the organisation. I'll always start with that. And I think as a retention tool, that's probably the number one tool you can do. And for all those business owners out there, if you haven't thought about your culture, you've already got one. It's just, for me, it's being deliberate about the culture that you want to create for the business you're in. And I think that's from a retention point of view of how we retain great people, is to have a great culture within the organisation.
Yep.
And then the second thing is you know, I'd be saying to people, don't recruit your friends. Have a look at the skill set you need rather than someone you know, and be very deliberate about what's the skill set required. And you don't want someone else like you quite often. You need the eclectic skill set if you want to run a well-managed business. Wise
words, and I fully concur. So, and I've had a little bit of experience doing that over the years as well. Scott, give back is a very common theme about the people that I've interviewed over the last couple of shows, and that's heading up to nearly 100 people now. And there's been some pretty rich, famous, well-to-do and successful business people. And I think every one of them, there might have been one or two exceptions, has not only corporate and social responsibility, but the desire to give back. What are your thoughts or strategies or understandings or what have you around that?
Yeah, so once again, there's a couple of things there. Firstly, I do a lot of coaching in financial services in Australia, and one of our concepts is it's the world's IP, not mine. And I'm really passionate about turning an industry into a profession. And so we don't expect people to join our group, and we're quite happy to run public courses for advisors to take it back, because, you know, we think great advice is great for the community. And so we're all about better advisors. Secondly, at a client point of view, what we're passionate about is for our wealthy clients getting to understand where charity and philanthropy can fit within their social family system, to give them confidence that they've got enough money there for themselves, next generations, and maybe intergenerations, and to bring charity and bring the children along on that journey as part of passing on their values around that.
Yep. That's
obviously, as a family, we're quite charitable ourselves in the amount of time, effort and money that goes into our local and international sporting communities as well.
Yep. I had one of the guys that I interviewed for the last show was Alan Peace, who you may have run across. Interesting character.
Yep.
Wrote all the body language books and sold 30 million of them, or whatever it happens to be. And we met through the Life Underwriters Association back in the 70s.
Yeah.
So
it's just as a quick story, you know, when we could travel, we go to Fiji a lot. And, you know, you go out and stay, like we go surfing out there and take the kids surfing and fishing and have a beautiful holiday on a beautiful island. But the kids don't ever remember that. What they remember was that we took them to the orphanage for the day.
Yep.
That every year, year after year. And they remember having the best day with those kids, bringing them toothbrushes and shampoos and brushes and teaching them, and having the day, seeing those kids, you know, for them, giving back into that Fijian community is what they remember. So isn't that interesting? It's not about the 5-star hotel, it's about having the day, giving back.
And that'll stay with them, I'm sure, through their adult life.
Absolutely.
So I had, as I mentioned before, I had a great interview with my old friend, Dr. Phil Jauncey, who I met when I was with MLC back in the 70s. And he was talking about getting your head space in the right space. Do you do anything like that with mind coaching and that sort of stuff? I know you have physical coaches, but does that incorporate that, Scott?
Well, it's actually funny. We've got one of our companies is called Headspace, so that is funny. But we spend a lot of in our world, we spend a lot of time in hard skills, technical skills. And what we've done as a group, we've, for the last 15 years, spent a lot of time in emotional intelligence. So we actually, inside the business, have our own emotional intelligence coach. So from a mind, from a relationship point of view, we want to understand ourselves emotionally, and we want to understand our clients emotionally as well. So we spend a lot of time with a lot of different emotional intelligence models, teaching our advisors this and then bringing it into the discussions we have with clients. It's a very big piece of our puzzle about how you have deeper relationships with your clients.
Yep.
Obviously, deeper relationships with your family and children, etc., along the way.
Is that like a little bit like that Netflix series? And I can't remember what it's called, Billionaire, with Bobby Axelrod. I don't know if you've ever caught up with that. And he has this lady that comes in and gets all the traders with their head in the right space.
Well, I read a book years ago called The CEO and the Monk, and it was about a big business who said, we're in a people business, and they brought a monk in to help sort out the people issues. And I went, well, okay. I really like that concept, that we're in a relationship business, and I don't sit here saying I'm the guru on relationships. I need to be taught, and everyone can be taught emotional intelligence. You just need a willingness and a desire to do it. So I brought an emotional intelligence coach in.
Yeah.
And people, love this guy to death, and he's part of the glue or part of the fabric of the organisation.
Yeah, brilliant. Scott, what's hot and what's not coming up for 2021 and beyond? What's if we can look into the crystal ball, and you've probably got a better vision on that than a lot of people.
Are we talking financially or?
Financially really focused, but anything else that you want to throw into the answer?
Well, in Australia, there's what's happening in Australia is commoditisation is occurring across accounting, legal, and financial services. There's a race to the top, not to the bottom. So a lot of those professions are facing disruption through technology. I can get my tax return done in India now for $40 an hour, not $500 an hour. I can get my legal documents online. So a lot of the professions are looking or searching to go, where can I add value for my clients and not be commoditised? So you're seeing this disruption occurring where firms want to either be boutique and move up into that higher net wealth family groups, or they're moving down just to be able to deliver via the internet. So they're having to make decisions, and in our world, you don't want to be caught in the middle. You don't want to be beige.
Yep.
It's black or white where you want to play.
Yep.
And that's the big disruption that's occurring across Australia at the moment. And I would assume around the rest of the world as well.
I saw a good example of that. There's a company called Pinduoduo in China that's connecting farmers directly to consumers, a little bit like using the Amazon model and cutting out all the supermarkets. And so the growers get a little bit more money, the consumer gets a little bit better deal, and it's grown to like 600 billion in the first 18 months.
Unbelievable. So that, once again, for your small business owners, that's a risk that you face, and you need to be very, very particular about what target market is that market. You need to review that market and go, is it going to be future-proofed?
Yep.
Where do you want to spend time?
Scott, I really appreciate your time today, and it's been an absolute joy to have you on the program. And if particularly people in Australia and the fields that you operate in, if anybody needs to seek out some expertise in the financial pocket, what's the best way of getting hold of you?
Well, if they just look at Fitzpatrick's Private Wealth, that will track us down. We have a range of advisors around the country. That's usually the quickest way to get to us.
Very good.
The other thing I've just started in Australia for advisors, a podcast actually called The GAF, which you might be interested in. It stands for Great Advisory Frameworks or Greatest All-Time Failures, whichever one you want.
Okay.
The business owners have quite enjoyed that as well.
Lovely. So Scott Fitzpatrick, thank you very much for sharing your time and your words of wisdom today, and I'm sure people will get benefit from it. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and we look forward to catching up to see what 2021 and 2022 brings.
Thanks, John. Great. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.